I went
HAWK TUAH.
and spat on that thing. Got knocked up with an affair baby. But now his wife found me? Stay till the end and find out why. This episode is emotionally disturbing to cheaters. I'm a 26-year-old female. A few years ago, I had an affair with a married man. He was 42 years old. I had no clue. He was married when we first met and hooked up. I obviously looked him up on social media, and while he did have photos of his kids on there, there was absolutely no mention or photos of a wife at all. I found out that he was married about a month after we first got together, but he told me it was just a marriage on paper, and that they basically lived separate lives, and agreed to remain married for practical purposes until the kids were older. They owned a business, which she really ran, and he was just financially involved in. I knew at the time that I probably shouldn't have believed him, but I convinced myself it was true. I was in my early 20s and so attracted to him and, I guess, almost infatuated with him. He made me feel so good. I know now that I should have ended it immediately, but I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was addicted to all of the attention he gave me, the great sex, the places he'd take me. I felt special. I was so naive. I got pregnant about a year into seeing him. I had always been serious with preventing pregnancy, but during my relationship with him, I took stupid risks. I was so high in lust with this guy. It's embarrassing. The things he'd asked me to do, I'd say yes to almost anything, even when I knew it was a bad idea. I was in love with him, or I thought I was. I hadn't intentionally wanted to get pregnant. I would, of course, dream about being his wife and having a family, but I knew that wouldn't be a possibility while he had this arrangement with his actual wife. I didn't get pregnant on purpose, with any intention of him leaving her, for me, even if I wished that we could be a real, normal couple. I was surprised by how excited I was to be pregnant with his baby. I wanted that baby. Once I found out I was pregnant, the thought of carrying this baby, of the man I loved, was so special to me. But I knew he probably wouldn't feel the same. I told him I was pregnant, and he told me I couldn't keep the baby. I expected his reaction, but I was devastated, and it hurt me to my core that he didn't feel the same way I did. He offered to pay to make a whole weekend of it somewhere exciting. Who actually does that? And to buy me something special if I'd just please get rid of the baby. He explained that he didn't want any more kids and that he couldn't openly be a father to another kid when he and his wife were still pretending to be happily married to the outside world. I agreed to do what he wanted, and we made plans for him to pick me up and find somewhere out of town to go get it done. I was all packed the night he was going to pick me up, but I started to feel really scared and really unsafe about the whole thing. I took my bag and checked myself into a hotel to hide because I couldn't go with him. I texted him to say I promised to never contact him again and to never name him as the father, or go after child support if he'd promised to leave me alone. At first, he tried to sweet-talk me into doing what he wanted. When I didn't cave in, he said some very nasty things to me, and that I essentially better never contact him again, or show up at his door. Fast forward to now. I have a 2-year-old now. At times, it's been difficult, but overall, we are thriving as best we can. I have kept my word about not naming him as the father or requesting child support. But then it started. His wife contacted me on social media. Well, she's his ex-wife now. She wants to talk to me. She found out about me and told me that she divorced him 6 months ago. She wants her children to know their sibling, and for my child to know his siblings. That's weird to me. I haven't responded back to her yet. I am unsure about how to approach this. How do I actually respond to this? I wonder if I'm being selfish by not exploring an option for my child to know his siblings, if she's being genuine about that. If I was married and my husband fathered a child outside of our marriage, I don't think I'd feel the same that she does. I've read some of your comments, and I'll try to answer as best I can. Before you go after me, please believe me. I didn't know he was married when we first got together. I acknowledged that I should have ended the relationship as soon as I found out he was married. I allowed myself to believe what he told me, which made it seem not so bad, like this was some sort of agreement he and his wife had. Emotionally, I was already hooked. I'm not making excuses here, though. I wouldn't say I was happy to bring a baby into this situation. There was a huge mix of emotions. I felt like I was in love with him, so there was a part of me that was excited at first. That feeling soon died, but I felt that I loved my baby still. I tried to do the best thing that I could, which was to remove myself from his life and his family's life. I just wanted to be able to keep my baby and love my baby. I did not get pregnant on purpose. I wasn't on birth control. I had been on birth control when I was slightly younger and had a life-threatening health complications as a result. He knew I wasn't on birth control. He loved it because he didn't like to be protected during intimacy. I was stupid and I agreed to do it. I would do almost anything he asked intimately. I tried to track my cycle and would tell him when it was probably not a safe time to do it. His wife isn't really what I'm afraid of. Whatever she'd want to say to me is probably deserved anyway, and more. He found out about the pregnancy before I ghosted him. And upon finding out I was pregnant with his child, there was absolutely no real discussion about what we were going to do. We were going to do what he wanted to do, and he had it all planned out. He threatened me by text and by phone calls and voicemails when I told him I was not going to go with him on this abortion vacation he had planned. I begged him to please not force me to do that, and he turned mean. I offered to never contact him again, if he'd just let me go. After threatening me again about what he'd do if I didn't keep my word, he agreed. He has kept his side of the bargain and has never contacted me. I've been assuming that she found out about me on her own, maybe saw something on his phone or computer, and has probably known for a while before reaching out to me, if it's actually her. I get what some people are saying about siblings and such, but that man is not my child's dad. He is the dad of his older kids, but he's not the dad of my kid. I'm still young, and I hope to have more children one day. And those children would be my son's siblings. I hope to find a man who loves me and my son, and with whom I can have a legitimate relationship. I haven't been with another man since I ended things with this guy. I actually just went on 2 dates for the first time very recently. I'm not desperate to find a man right now, but I hope to find real love one day. Those people are not my son's family. He's only 2, and they're old enough to drive. So I don't think they're missing out on any sort of important relationship right now. I understand wanting to know your bio family, and I feel he can decide that later on, when he's old enough to understand. Depending on where we are at in our lives at the time, he might not feel a need to know those people. I don't plan to lie to my son about his conception, but I don't think we need to involve ourselves with the man's ex-wife and teenage children at this time.
Royal A.I.
I made a post 3 weeks ago, and things have only gotten stranger. To bring others up to speed, I had an affair with a married man a few years ago. I regret it, and I will never do anything like that ever again. I knew it was wrong from the very beginning, but he captivated me. I was naive. I allowed myself to believe. When he told me they were pretty much just married on paper for the sake of their kids, I got pregnant. And while he tried to talk me into getting an abortion, I ultimately decided to keep the baby. I have a 2-year-old little boy now. I promised this man that I wouldn't expose our affair, and I wouldn't formally identify him as the father or request child support. I did that because he was becoming very nasty about the whole thing, and I felt like, due to the mess that I had created and the way I felt by the end of it, a clean break with no involvement with him would be the best thing for everyone. I moved back to where my family is, hundreds of miles from where he and his family live. About a month ago, his ex-wife reached out to me via social media, claiming they had been divorced for 6 months and that she wanted our children to be able to know each other. Now, their kids are teenagers, so I didn't really think they'd want anything to do with a toddler, and the woman their father was having an affair with, and went HAWK TUAH on his thing. It seemed odd to me. After posting here, I sort of decided that I wouldn't respond to her. I'd just ignore it. She just sent me the one message, so it wasn't as if she was badgering me about talking to me or meeting me. But I couldn't let it go. It kept festering me, eating me up. On Friday night, I decided to message her. I don't really know why. I think it was really just for my sake, so I could have the chance to apologize to her. I told her that I would be more comfortable speaking with her face to face, since I couldn't trust that it was really her. She said she understood. I was too nervous to meet her in person, but we did a video chat. I didn't know what to expect, if this was all a ploy just to unleash her fury on me or what. I mean, I'd deserve that. She wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. It was really her. She told me she discovered our affair when she found communications between the two of us, some during, most after our relationship had ended. She told me, I'm one of many women he had affairs with over the years, and she knew about somebody even before he met me, but she didn't divorce him at the time. Finding out about my child, an affair baby, was the final straw for her. I told her I was sorry for my relationship with her husband and admitted that I knew he was married. She graciously told me she forgives me, and that while she harbored a lot of anger towards me initially, she ultimately blames her husband. I'm not blameless, but she chooses to not hate me, essentially. She said she couldn't have said this 6 months ago or a year ago when she first found out about me, but she has moved past that. She still has anger toward him, in addition to many other emotions surrounding him. She started pouring out her heart to me about their 20-plus year marriage and life together, and it was very awkward, because what do I even say? Her kids know about me and my son. She says they're very mad at their father. Somehow, I don't think they're mad about the fact that he's not involved with my son's life. And why would they be mad about that? I would hate me if I were them. I told her, with my son being so little right now, I don't really feel comfortable with him meeting her kids or being involved with their family. I feel unsure about it, and it's just not something I feel needs to happen right now. Then she told me her ex-husband was in a bad accident 2 months ago. He's fine now, still not allowed to return to all his normal activities just yet, but will be fine. He is probably the most physically active person I've ever met, barely ever seems to sit down, so he must be terribly annoying to be around if he's not allowed to go all the time. She told me he wants to meet my son. Apparently, she moved back in with him temporarily when he first came home from the hospital. She said the accident really shook him up, and he has been expressing a lot of regret about my son, not being involved, not providing for him. So now it's like, was everything she said just a lie, and he somehow got her to reach out to me on his behalf? And she actually did it? It felt almost like a relief talking to her initially, but then it's like, was any of that true, or you were just trying to be his messenger? I don't even know if that part is true now. Why wouldn't he just contact me himself? I'm just feeling so uneasy about the whole thing now. Some of you commented on this update and gave me advice. Well, again, I don't believe I have to involve his teenage children in my son's life. Maybe when my son is old enough to decide if he wants that. He is not named on the birth certificate, and I do not receive child support from him. I have asked nothing of him except to let me move away and not try to force me to have an abortion. I basically had to promise him to not contact him, not make him as the father, not request child support. If he truly wants involvement with my son, he can reach out to me directly, and he can take the legal route to establish himself as our son's father.
I know you don't believe he has the right, and morally, he doesn't. But if he wants to press the point, he can ask the court to order DNA testing and assert paternal rights. He's a lowlife, and it was awful of him to insist you make those promises. Is there any chance that in exchange for this, he legally severed his rights? If so, block them both and never think of them again. I totally get not wanting him involved in any way, shape, or form. Odds are he won't do anything, because asserting his rights will mean that he has to cough up child support for 18 years and pay another college tuition. But just be aware he might do this.
He did not legally sever his rights. He never established rights in the first place. He has no rights until he goes to court and establishes himself as the father. He is welcome to do that. Honestly, I wish my son did have a father who was involved in his life and loved him. Yes, this guy has faults, but he has plenty of positive qualities. He is really involved with his older children. I met them many times because they'd be at work with him, or he'd have to drop by the office in his way to take them somewhere. He was always doing things with them. They seemed like good kids who really loved their dad. I wish my son could have that experience too. I didn't think it was an option based on how he behaved when I was pregnant. He wasn't interested and wanted me and our baby to go away. That's what I did, and I accepted it. I cannot stop him from taking the legal steps to establish paternity if he wishes to do so. He will always be my son's biological father. I can't change that fact. Regardless of whether or not he ever legally establishes paternity, my son will likely be curious about his biological father, and who knows, maybe they will establish a relationship one day regardless of legal paternity. I posted about this a few months ago. It's still sort of weird to me, since the siblings are teenagers. I won't repeat everything before that, just the next small part. So you know I agreed to talk to her virtually, not in person. I felt that I owed it to her to apologize for what I had done. I do feel bad about it. But at the end of the conversation, she told me that he was recently in a bad accident, and she had been helping to take care of him. Supposedly, he was going to be fine and was fairly recovered at that point, but she said he had expressed interest to meet our child. So she was basically his messenger. I have not been in contact with her since then. I deleted my social media. I don't know why, but the whole thing just really made me uncomfortable. So since I last posted here, things did happen. I received a handwritten letter from him. In it, he expressed how he wanted to get to know our son. He wants to be a father to our son. He wants to provide financially for him. He'd like us to come visit him. He asked me to sign a paternity affidavit. I refused to do so. I know he is my son's father, but I'm not going to make this that easy for him. After the things he said to me and threatened me with, he at least has to work for this. At that point, my parents felt that we needed to meet with a lawyer. All communication from me has gone through a lawyer. I have never responded to him personally or directly. Now I have a court order for paternity. I have to present my son to have a specimen taken tomorrow. I already know what it's going to say. It's not that I don't want my son to have a dad in his life. It's just the whole situation is a mess. and he lives a few states away from me. I don't know what to do. I can't really do anything. He's doing things legally. Next, I'm sure he'll petition for some form of custody or visitation. He's not married anymore, supposedly, but he's a lot more established than I am. He has considerably more financial resources. I also know he has all sorts of connections where he lives. Luckily, they don't hold as much weight here in my state, but it's still so scary to me. I'm a bad mom. I brought my son into this world, knowing it was a messy situation. I just got so comfortable with it just being the two of us, and now I don't want to give that up. To touch on just a few things, someone asked me if I'm sure the father would be moving closer to me and our son, now that he's divorced from his ex-wife. I don't think he'll move away from where he lives. Like I said, he has way too much established there. He's in his early 40s. I don't know how this supposed accident, if that even really happened, has affected him, but he was incredibly physically active when I knew him. Not health-wise, though. He only slept like 4 hours a night, took a 20-minute power nap daily, and rarely ever sat down. He was also highly involved in his children's lives. I'd even say overprotective, like a helicopter dad instead of the typical helicopter mom. How did he have time to cheat? Well, he only slept a few hours a night and moved at about 1,000,000 miles a minute. Everyone joked about it. Somehow, he always had time to get up at 5 a.m., go surfing, do some work, take his kids to school, do some work, take his power nap, get coffee, pick his kids up after school and take them wakeboarding, or some other sort of thing like that, then go back, do some more work, be at his kids' basketball game, and so on and so forth. He literally never ever stopped. I was just another thing to help fill out his calendar, to prevent him from getting bored. I also don't think he and his wife had much of a relationship, although it wasn't quite as he described it to me. They lived in the same house, but I believe they lived pretty separate lives. He bought her a business to give her something to do and keep her busy. She was there most of the time. They didn't even go to their kids' activities together. He was always the one going, so I think that freed up time too. I don't think they liked being around each other, so she was happy to have him out of the house. She admitted to me that I wasn't the first affair he had, and she even knew about some or most of the time we were together. I'm kind of rehashing the whole thing here. Sorry for that. My previous posts are on my profile. He asked to be involved with our son, to provide for him, etc. It still felt weird I haven't talked to him at all during this whole thing. I didn't respond directly to his letter. I do have a lawyer, and everything is basically going through him now. I felt like if he was serious, he'd take the steps to establish paternity legally. And that's what he did. Around 1.5 months ago, we were ordered to submit DNA samples for a paternity test. It took around 5 weeks to find out what I already knew it'd say. But now things are stalled for another several weeks, for the next step in the court process. Then, without any warning, he just showed up at my home last weekend. Just knocked on the door like it was nothing. Basically, this is his son, and he doesn't want to wait another 6 weeks for the court to inevitably order us into some sort of custody mediation anyway. His words. Why can't I just talk to him? I told him he made me uncomfortable, and him just showing up at my house really made me uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't know what made me so uncomfortable. The fact that he showed up unannounced like that, or the fact that I instantly felt the same attraction to him that I had when I was with him. And I didn't want to feel that at all. In some weird way, part of me felt happy to see him, and then another part of me was disgusted that I was happy. He said he doesn't understand why we can't just talk about this. He's not trying to take my son away from me. He just wants to be involved in his life and to help provide for him, like he should have been all along. He's sorry he wasn't there when he was born. He's sorry he reacted the way that he did when I didn't go along with his plans to take me on this forced vacation. Why can't I believe that he just wants to be a dad to his kid? I guess I do agree with him. Why can't I just accept that he has had a change of heart? I can't trust myself. I can't trust my own judgment. I feel like if I easily let him into my son's life, I'm going to end up regretting it and be made a fool of somehow. I've already made so many mistakes when it comes to him. He says it's stupid of me to not try to work it out amongst ourselves first. I'm giving too much control to the court. I don't know whether to believe that or to think it's just his way of convincing me to do what he wants. I know he will get some sort of visitation and eventual custody. Maybe it would be better if we try to come to an agreement, but he had the ability to sway me so easily. I'm so stupid when it comes to him. Nobody else has ever made me feel so foolish in my life. I want my son to have a dad. I admit it's probably selfish of me to want to keep him away. I just keep imagining having to spend weeks or months apart from my child while he's living with his dad 12 hours away, and I can't stand the thought of it. I'm just feeling sad, stupid, and defeated. I did check the county records and saw they did actually get divorced. What do I do?
Royal A.I.
At this point, you need to trust your lawyer. Hopefully, he is a good one. Make sure that your lawyer has all the facts, including how poorly he treated you when he found out you were pregnant. Do not communicate anymore with your ex, especially since you know that you are incapable of making good decisions when he is involved. You may need to prepare yourself mentally that your ex is eventually going to play a role in your kid's life, as much as that's a bad thing. Hopefully you can go after him for back child support.
Thank you. My lawyer has any and all information that I possibly had to share. I'm already preparing myself that he will likely have a role in my child's life. I mean, the change will be difficult for me, and I honestly don't want anything to change. But I'm trying to focus on any shred of positive outcome this could have for my son. He deserves a dad. I just wish it wasn't in this situation. I wish I had given him 2 loving parents in a stable relationship, the ideal. I wish I had at least given him a father who didn't live states away. I feel bad that my son has 2 lying cheaters for parents. I truly do feel embarrassed about our behavior. In a new way I did before, ever since my son was born. Other than that whole thing, and the fact that he's apparently had affairs with multiple women according to his ex-wife, he actually seems like a good dad to his teenage kids. He was always very involved with them. I guess I'm just trying to cling to whatever positive things I can think of. He can also provide a lot more financially than I currently can. That's scary for me, because I'm already turning it into some sort of competition between us in my head. Several points for him, none for me. Also, my son is very shy. He doesn't do so well if me or one of my parents isn't there with him. I'm just now getting him involved in more activities with other kids and safe, trusted adults, but he still just clings to me. My heart breaks when I think of him meeting a strange man he doesn't know, and me not being there. I want to be there, but his dad won't let me. And I think that's how things will be, as the father wants it to be, and to be perfectly honest, that's how I used to be for him too. Just go along with whatever he wants. He was obviously expecting me to, when he showed up in person. He genuinely seemed surprised. I didn't cave in to his requests, right on the spot. The previous version of me probably would have. Someone asked me how he found my address. He sent me a letter in the mail previously. I Googled myself, and my address came up easily. Admittedly, I made no quality effort to hide myself after moving away. I didn't think I needed to. He had no interest in being involved with our baby, and I promised to never contact him again, so I thought that was the end of it. His ex-wife told me he was in a bad accident. When he showed up here, he didn't look like somebody who had been in a life-threatening accident, not too terribly long ago. He told me he's fully recovered, and although he'll probably have back issues the rest of his life, he's perfectly fine. Someone asked about my position on having a visitation plan with the father. My lawyer says that other than creating a graduated visitation plan based on the fact that my son doesn't know this man, the fact that he hasn't been involved in his child's life for the last 3 years, won't mean much to the court. Their ultimate goal is for a child to have 2 parents. I screwed myself over by not naming him as the father at birth, or trying to establish paternity in any way. Had I done that and he fought it, neglected to pay court-ordered child support, then we could have a better case as far as abandonment goes. He is putting in the effort to establish paternity, is willing to pay child support, so he says, and is presumably going to tell the court he wants to see his kid, and this is going to reflect positively for him, despite not being involved for 3 whole years.
So he intimidated her into an abortion, then got nasty when she said no, threatened her if she ever contacts him again, then 2 years later expects her to just roll over and be happy that he wants to be in that child's life, and welcome him with open arms after getting his ex-wife to try to drag her back and showing up at her home unannounced without permission because the court is taking too long to force her. What the actual insanity? Absolutely not. That's some horror movie crap.
I feel like he showed up in person because he knows he's not getting everything he wants through the courts and is relying on her to roll over and make an agreement much better for him than what the court will decide.
This woman makes me feel so annoyed. She's going to end up sharing the sheets with him again, getting pregnant again, repeating this whole ordeal without one lesson learned. Then the consequences of her actions come back to bite her, and there will be another update for us to read. Pity Party, Part 2 coming up, hitting the theaters in 2025.
Glad I'm not the only one who feels this way. Like, yes, I feel bad for her, but holy God, was almost every single decision she made, nearly the worst possible one. And not once has she fully learned anything. That last post just oozed. Yeah, I'ma do this guy again. Despite the context being showing up at her house. Like an absolute creep.
She should trust her gut, not the belly tingles. I wonder how much of his actions is actually a bid to try and win back his ex-wife and kids, and his reputation. Think about it. Ex-wife told OP that the affair partner has had multiple affairs, and none of that made her want to divorce him. The abandonment of a child did, though. That 3-year-old boy is the catalyst. That led to this cheating bum losing control of damn near everything in his life, starting with OP openly defying him, by refusing the abortion and ghosting him. His threats to her is an attempt to gain control of something he could no longer direct by ensuring it is removed from his circle of influence, where his shame can impact him. But then his wife finds out, and he learns that there is a line that leads her to choose divorce. He loses his children's respect, and with living proof of his infidelity and his callousness, his reputation takes a hit as well. Then the accident happens, giving him a lot of time and space to think. He can't unscrew the cat now that it's out of the bag, but he can rehabilitate his image as a loving family man and a good person with his circle by embracing the boy, make it a redemption journey. Maybe even win back his family. He starts feeding that story to his ex-wife, and she takes the bait by playing on her love for children to contact OP on his behalf. The wrench in this remains to be OP. Turns out, she's not in as dire straits as he had hoped a single mom to be, and didn't jump at the chance to give her son a dad. He tries again, and is probably shocked when she lawyers up. It slows his role considerably. His showing up in person at her place Is his impatience showing, his mask slipping at her resistance to what he wants? He needs her cooperation, not just to speed up his plans, but to also bend her into a situation that benefits him. His visit is also to try and gather intel on how to do that. As it were, once child support is established, he's probably planning on overpaying the court-ordered amount for back pay and future payments. He's also reading a lot of books on child psychology, prepping for supervised visitation to put his best foot forward. Anything beyond that really depends on the court and if OP digs in and trusts her gut.
Before we conclude this story, it came to my attention that there are many YouTubers that re-upload my content by simply putting another background into their episode.
Oh my God!
If you hear this audio anywhere else than on Royal A.I, it means they stole it. Be sure to watch Royal A.I if you like this type of content. What would you advise OP? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to smack the like button, and if you have a story you're willing to share, email it to contactroyalai@gmail.com. See you in the next one.